What's going on, traders? It's Ricky with TechBud Solutions. So just another recap on today's trading. I do want to give a shout out to all the members that participated on today's trading. Thank you for all those that were active, sharing best practices, and doing what we do best in an effort to promote growth. Right. So if you guys would like to be a part of this, positive environment when it comes to investing or learning how to trade penny stocks, feel free to ask to join. It is a free group you can join. The link is provided for you down in the description. It is going to take you to the Facebook platform, and within this platform, you could actually ask to join the different group chats that we have available. So whichever one you end up choosing, you can choose all of them or the selected amount that you think would be the best fit for you. Okay, so again, it is a free group you can join. It's just a networking group to help one another grow as entrepreneurs and investors. So let's go ahead and get started. I traded a total of 3 different stocks today. My initial stock that I jumped in was pretty much almost simultaneously, and it was NAK and BIOS. I shouted these stocks out during the pre-market movers, which means market opens at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. I shouted these out before that time, just because the this gray area is pre-market, so I have access to viewing how they're doing during pre-market hours. So I just wanted to give you guys a better understanding on whether resistance or whether current support was. So I shouted BIOS to have a resistance at $2 since it peaked out at 2, and once the market opened, it identified to have a support around 170. So I didn't actually trade it till like closer to the maybe like 8 a.m. Time, or around like 8:30, and the whole reason was it continued to drop. It went back up again, hit highs of about like nearly 95. 195, and then came back down, and this is when we were buying in. So I bought in at 170. My entry point wasn't the best. It actually ended up going a little bit below 170, but the whole point of this group is to share my best practices, and if I made a mistake, then I can suggest something that can help someone else out. So I told the team I'm jumping into BIOS. I was waiting for upward momentum. This is a EMA indicator, which shows me just the trend on growth. And when the indicator was live, in a sense, when it was moving towards what it was that I was doing, it actually showed to be picking up around the 170. So I suggested or identified that as a good buy point. Ended up dropping a little bit lower. So a couple traders within our group chat were able to jump in at a better price than me. And that's the whole point of this group, to share best practices. And if any other investor or entrepreneur within our group sees the value, then they can decide to jump on in. Okay. And once we jumped on in, we identified the resistance to be anywhere around the 180, 185 area. I jumped out. I stop lossed out sooner than I wanted to. I was following it with a trailing stop loss. And once it hit the resistance at 175, it went a little bit higher, came back down, and I stop lossed out. Hit lows of about 171, and then came back up, broke above 180, and did pretty well. Held around like 182, 183, and then came back down. Didn't drop as low as it did before. It almost stayed at the first initial drop, and then just continued to show growth throughout the whole day, as in the bounces or the supports continue to increase, which means it's showing upward momentum. And that's essentially what you want to identify when it comes to investing in stocks. So I drew this line just indicating where it usually bouncing. Where it's usually bouncing as the stock continues to rise. I locked in about $88, nothing crazy. And I was doing this, I was in a meeting, and that's the beautiful thing I think about like investing or trading, that as long as you have a good Wi-Fi connection or internet connection, and you have your mobile device, depending on what platform you use, if you have the right principles and you are well educated when it comes to knowing how to invest and what to invest, that's only going to lead to your success. So I brought in $88 within a couple minutes. A couple traders ended up holding a little bit longer, and ended up being able to lock in, close to that because of my alert around like the 168, and then hitting highs of about almost nearly the 189. That's nearly over 10% profit, so that's huge. But that my area of improvement is to not be so impatient and so scared about not being able to lock in profit. I do have to get a little bit more margin, but the whole reason why was because I felt that it was showing downward momentum, because when it dropped here, it ended up dropping a little bit lower, so I didn't want it to continue to drop, and then for me to stop loss that, end up being in the red rather than the green. So that was just what I was able to identify. Again, none of this was present. I had to go off of based on the data that it previously showed me, and it was showing me a downward trend. Ended up picking up, and that's great, and I'm glad I was able to help out the group in the way that I did with this specific alert. So jumping right into the other one that we traded, that one was NAK, and I'm going to go a little bit more into that one. and where I shutted it out. I ended up not doing very well on this one. I ended up losing $2 because I stop lossed out right below the support at 140. So again, it was all about where I initially ended up buying in. So I bought in before this huge dip, and the whole point again, sharing my best practices and sharing my mistakes in an effort to benefit others. So just because I couldn't make money on a specific stock doesn't mean that no one else can, right? That's the whole point of this group, to learn and continue growing as one another, for one another. So I identified the support at around 140. I was initially going to buy in at 141. That's when I shouted the stock out. I bought in and got filled at 140. I didn't wait for that upward momentum. Ended up dropping, hit lows of 137, came back up, and then I ended up just selling and stop lossing out because I was like, okay, well now I'm going to put a stop loss at the 1.399. And ended up getting filled right after. So I ended up losing, 0.0001 cent. And the reason why was because I knew that was a strong support, and if it was going to break that support, I knew most likely it was going to continue to drop. And there was a previous support at about 132, and I didn't want to ride it all the way down there. So my plan was to, to get in at a lower point. But again, because I was in a meeting, because I was at work, I was too busy and too occupied to actually jump back in. But again, I shouted it out. I did what I could to help other people. Ended up dropping to lows of 128. Ended up picking up nearly to 145. So obviously had more than a 10% growth from the initial alert that I sent out. So just because I couldn't get in at the best price doesn't mean other people can. So it's all about waiting for that pop and seeing that upward momentum, being able to set up a game plan on where you're buying, where you're going to sell, and where you're going to cut your losses if all of a sudden it takes a dip. So it's all about having a plan. So I hope I did see a couple traders make quite a bit of profit while it was picking up, and then they were able to identify the old resistance at 145 because, like we know, old supports become new resistance levels. So as you can see, the stock struggled to go below 145, and now most likely, based on this history, it's going to struggle to go above 145 just because, like we've said, old supports become new resistance. And that's my recap on NAK. There is another one that I want to shout out. It's not necessarily going to be IDXG. It's going to be DRYS. We shouted this one out. And the whole reason why was because of the huge drop that I had. This is one that we were trading yesterday. And it's been all over the place. DRYS, what I want you guys to understand, it's been on a downward trend, steadily from 3 months year to date, right? It's just been, as you can see, on a huge downward trend. This is definitely not one that you want to hold or hope for the best, because realistically, if you do that, you're going to get, you're not going to be successful. Well, I can't say that, right? But based on the history, it's most likely you're not going to be successful when it comes to trading this. But it's all about catching it at the bounce. And one thing that I've been telling different members that have been DMing me is what I think about DRYS. Although, yes, I don't think that this is a hold. I mean, we're day traders, right? I definitely know that it's a very volatile stock and that it has potential. It hit highs of the old resistance at about 170 and 170. 7 today, I believe. So being able to identify the resistance, the real resistance was initially at 170 and ended up breaking that and hit highs of 174. And then it built a support at this initial drop and kind of, once it picked up, came back all the way down again because it's not really showing growth. It could have just been more of a pump and a dump, but whatever it is, we had to set up a game plan. What's a good buy point? So I was telling everyone, wait for a pop, wait for a bounce. And ended up bouncing right around that 129 area. Doesn't mean that you have to get in there. You can wait for this SMA or EMA indicator to show you upward momentum and then jump in at that point. You could have jumped in with this indicator showing you around 140 and ended up peaking at 174. So you could have simply followed with the trailing stop loss. It really started picking up right around that 155 area once it broke this old resistance. Since it's now a new resistance, it ended up popping right through. Held a little bit, below the 170, popped up, got two little tight squeezes, and then came back down and kind of plateaued around that same plateau. So most likely tomorrow, DRYS will continue to drop, or if not, trade around this area, but show downward trends. It's all about identifying successfully these bounces and these supports, setting up a game plan on where you're buying, where you're selling, and where you're going to cut your losses to minimize loss and promote growth. So that's kind of my recap on that specific stock. So let me go ahead and get into the last one that we traded today. And this one wasn't a day trade. This was one that I traded myself for for a couple of days, but it's definitely one that a lot of people within our group did day trade today and did pretty well. We saw quite a bit of loss on NUGT. That's why I wasn't too actively, shutting it out within our group because of how bad it actually did yesterday. But what I was able to see that during pre-market hours and after market hours as of yesterday, it had a support right around this hit lows, and I shutted this one out in the very morning. Hit lows of about like 785, 789, 790, and then peaked out at nearly 840, right? So being able to identify the resistance and the support. So as it opened, peaked up, hit that resistance at 840, kind of just like planned. That's when I shut it out. Came back down, didn't hit as low as it did before, came back up, and then kind of plateaued. And this is really when it peaked out. So, we shut it out. It was at lows of 790. Came back up and then just shot up and hit highs of about 785, 885 to 890 nearly. So more than $1 gain from the lowest point to the highest point. So definitely have that potential. And because we've been trading NUGT for quite a while, like we knew it had that potential just because of previous trends. So I'm not saying jumping in as much as you can within just because it's been very volatile. But it's definitely one that you can based on with previous trends, identify good supports and good resistance and set up a game plan to be able to trade it successfully. So that's pretty much my recap on today's trading. Other than that, the only other stock that was actively traded within our group was Snap, and it did pretty well. Nothing crazy, but it peaked out at nearly $30. Came back down, has a pretty good support around 2650 and a resistance around 2750 now. But now I think because of this huge drop that it had, it's going to start to kind of like plateau and not fluctuate as much as it did before. But again, you never know. It's a new company that was introduced to the stock market, so it seems like a lot of investors are actually putting their money into this. As you can see, the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that are trading this. So thank you guys again. I really do appreciate all the support. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me. The best way to reach out to me is to actually comment down in the description. To comment down in the comments where it's the best way to receive a response from me. Other than that, I do want to thank you guys for again being part of this group. And if you guys haven't done so already, feel free to join. I'd love to be a part of your success if you guys would like me to. If you guys found anything that we spoke about today helpful, and feel free to subscribe. We do upload daily recap videos and then helpful videos that can be, a little bit more helpful when it comes to getting introduced to the market of investing in trading penny stocks. And we do upload quite a bit of car videos on the different cars that we own. So I appreciate the support. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Hopefully you guys ended the week on a green note. And we'll see you guys on our Sunday Stock Talk. And let's make sure that we start next week on a green note. Take care, guys. Baby, don't you let it go to waste.